just walked through. And I think it's a nice mix of topics that are suited for people who are just getting into analytics, but then also for some marketers that are a little bit more advanced. So getting started with advanced coding, I really want to talk about what Google Analytics, or what we like to call GA, does out of the box. And by out of the box, I mean if you take that snippet of code that Google Analytics gives you and just put that on your website, and that's all you do. So let's just talk about how that works really quickly. So when a visitor comes to your website, basically that analytics JavaScript is where all the magic happens, and that's denoted there in box 1. Basically, that analytics JavaScript is collecting a bunch of information from where that person came from, their browser size, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and it takes all that information and requests information from Google, and all this magic processing happens down here in number 6 to give you wonderful data in your analytics reports. And that all happens very quickly, as we know, with the advent of things like real-time analytics, et cetera, these days. So it's important to note that this process typically only happens on page view. So as a user navigates from page to page of your site, or perhaps refreshes in their browser, that's the only time that this happens, that this GIF request happens to Google servers and this information gets processed. And we all know that on today's websites, there's a lot more opportunities to collect data, and there's a lot more intelligence that you'd like to gather with things like additional interactions like video controls, for example. People would like to know, marketers would like to know if their videos are effective on their site, and are people using them? Are they pausing them? Are they raising the volume? Do they actually watch it all the way through? So video controls and video in general is an area that we see that isn't always captured. And I think, as we go through these lists, and we're gonna list several examples of items that you could be capturing more data from, I think it's important to note that really there is a way to measure and capture data on anything that's happening on your website. You can leverage Google Analytics to do it. It's just very important that you really follow through and look at all those opportunities and code them. So that being said, another common example is things like mail tos. Having somebody come to your site and, for example, send an email via Outlook or whatever data program, whatever email client they're using, send that email to your sales team or to just your support team. Or in this case, I've used actually one of our global addresses, info@morevisibility.com. That's typically a desirable outcome, and you'd want to measure that. Since that happens in an email client, it's not something that you can really measure as a destination page in Google Analytics. So there's additional coding that you would want to place on your mail tos, for example. There's links that may exit your site. You may have a directory of vendors that you do business with, or business partners in this case, or links that just lead to external destinations, maybe where you cannot necessarily add Google Analytics code because it's a third-party site, or just that you can't get that code on there to capture it because maybe it's for whatever reason you decided that you don't want to have code there. But you can, even though you can't capture that information on the page, you can understand that someone actually clicked on that link and followed through to that destination. Another common one that we see, of course, is PDF. There's a lot of PDF content on the web, and this also could include software downloads or other downloads, or just in a large bucket of downloadables. Any interaction we have on a site where when the client when your visitor is doing something that is desirable, like downloading a white paper, et cetera, then you want to make sure that you're tracking this information and really measuring these interactions on your website. Other important interactions, and this is by no means totally inclusive, but could include social interactions. If somebody is clicking on your Facebook icons or reaching out to your YouTube channel or other things, those are desirable actions that you would want to measure in GA.
And that's a really good point, Theo, because oftentimes, we speak with advertisers who really struggle to identify and support why the business should be participating in social media and what types of metrics or measurements can they show to management in terms of ROI. So if you are not currently leveraging the Google Analytics platform through some of these social interactions, I'd strongly encourage that you pursue that because it will help to build that business case for the time, resource, and investment that social media takes or involves.
Yeah, that's a great point. And specifically with social media, when you have bookmarklet tools like share this or add this, or you do a good job of providing icons throughout the site with your content, this provides very, very useful data because you can actually go into a special section, the traffic sources section, the social subsection there, and look at this data and understand what of your content is being shared, which blog posts are people sharing, and on what platforms. And obviously, if you can understand more and more what type of content gets shared, then that helps you produce more of what the people are coming for and actually broaden the exposure of the brand. So these are some common examples, and this, again, by no means is inclusive of everything. But there's other things that you can capture on a page. For example, user inputs, like if you're an e-commerce site and people are selecting quantities or they have an option to input a quantity on the site, that's something that you may want to capture on that page as well. Or, for example, another e-commerce specific example, but this, again, doesn't have to be e-commerce, but maybe a color selection or something like that. So these are nice examples, but how do I actually track this? So I want to just kind of give you an overview of the coding methods. And again, as Danielle mentioned, we are recording this, so you will have an opportunity to come back and look at this information again. We don't have the time, unfortunately, to get into a technical coding that could be an hours and hours and hours long webinar, but we do want to expose you to it and give you an idea of what it takes.
For those of you who do need additional help or support with some of these advanced coding methods, as a Google Analytics certified partner, that is one of the benefits that MoreVisibility can extend to your company, is providing you with detailed technical support to your developers and programming staff to be able to do some of these more sophisticated methods of tracking that Theo is alluding to in these few slides here.
Great. So the first one is obviously that we're going to talk about is event tracking, and this goes to that whole, all of those page interactions, the PDF downloads, the video plays, etc. You really want to add event tracking into this. And so what event tracking really does is it helps you measure all of those things that don't generate those page views. So when an event fires in Google Analytics, this will prompt that JavaScript, that magic JavaScript, to actually do another GIF request and send this event information into the analytics servers to get into your reports so that you can make smarter marketing decisions based on this data. So this is a coding example for an event tracking that's added to, for example, an on-click event that's in an HTML attribute of an anchor. There's other ways to implement event tracking based on your use case, but this is a very common one where it's included into an anchor, and an anchor is like a link or a button or something along those lines into an HTML anchor as an on-click attribute. And when this occurs, again, would fire this information into Google Analytics. The other one that we talked about, of course, that can be used actually in conjunction with this is the Track Social. And Track Social is relatively new. It's been around, I guess, about 14, 15 months now. What it really does is it's a kind of a more defined or more specific way to track an event. And obviously, we're passing some particular strings in this example of Twitter and follow and footer. But whatever, this is kind of a pattern for any kind of deployment, regardless of the social network. But what this really does is it again, this special Track Social method is a cue to analytics to store this information in the plugins report of your social section of your traffic sources. And again, when this is implemented, you're able to see very easily what your popular content is and what is getting shared and where. So we definitely recommend that you use the latest coding and use Track Social to help you understand how your how your content is being shared out there in the online universe.